Elohim. Is this the Trinity? Let's look into the Hebrew and see how Elohim is used. You might have heard this argument from Trinitarians, that Genesis 1:1 says that in the beginning God created the heavens and the earth, and the word God is Elohim in Hebrew and is plural, and that's the Trinity according to them. At first this might throw you off. Why would a plural word be used for a one individual creator? The simple answer is this. It's called the plural intensive. Although Elohim, which is H430, can be used for a plurality of judges and angels, it's also used for single individuals, most notably the Most High Creator. Many Trinitarian scholars recognize this plural intensive. They have said that Elohim, when used for the Creator, is used in a singular sense. Let's look at the scholars on this. The Encyclopedia Britannica says, with the God of Israel in the Old Testament, though Elohim is plural in form, it is understood in the singular sense. The Blue Letter Bible says, the noun Elohim is plural, but is always used with a singular verb when it speaks of the true God. In Genesis 1:1, the word created is in the singular form, thus it's referencing a single person who did the action of creating. And lastly, one of the most well-respected Hebrew scholars is a man named Gesenius. He wrote that the plural nature of Elohim was for intensification and was related to the plural of majesty and used for amplification. Gesenius states, quote, the language has entirely rejected the idea of numerical plurality in Elohim whenever it denotes one God. This is proved especially by its being almost invariably joined with a singular attribute. A good example in English is the word sheep. It can be used for one sheep or three sheep or 1,000. It goes both ways, singular and plural. But how it's used in a sentence can tell you how it should be understood. I could say, my sheep was by the lake. He was eating all his food. Notice I said the singular pronoun he, which gives away that it's about one sheep that I'm referring to. And also, if I was speaking in Hebrew, I would have used a singular form of the word eating to also confirm that this is about one sheep. So also, in Genesis, there's several singular pronouns, and the word created in Genesis 1:1 is in the singular. Thus, Genesis 1 is about one person creating. We have other examples of Elohim being used for one individual, like Moses, Exodus 7 verse 1, and Yah said to Moses, see, I have made you Elohim to Pharaoh. Moses was one person, and yet was called Elohim. Also, the individual single false gods, such as Chemosh, Dagon, and Baal. Judges 6:31. If Baal really is a god, he can defend himself when someone breaks down his altar. There wasn't suddenly a trinity of Baals or a three-person Moses. The word Elohim was used for one individual in these examples. So also, Yahweh Elohim is one person. He is by himself the Most High Creator alone. Genesis 1:1 does not teach a trinity of gods. One individual creator is in the beginning of Torah. So as Torah observant believers, let's keep this instruction. Isaiah 44 verse 24. Thus says Yahweh, your Redeemer, who formed you from the womb. I am Yahweh, who made all things, who alone stretched out the heavens, who spread out the earth by myself. Please research the perfect plural and Hebrew grammar for using Elohim to our Creator, Most High. And please subscribe and comment below your thoughts. Thank you and shalom.
Let us make man in our image. Genesis 1:26. Is there a triune, three-person being in Genesis that created the heavens and the earth and mankind? Let's take a look. There's a total of 4 verses that mention the us or our when Yah is speaking. Genesis 1:26. The Elohim said, "Let us make man in our image, according to our likeness." Genesis 3 verse 22. Then Yahweh Elohim said, "Behold, the man has become like one of us." Genesis 11 verse 7. Come, let us go down and there confuse their language. Isaiah 6 verse 8. Whom shall I send, and who will go for us? Many assert that these texts prove that Yahweh Elohim is a plurality of 3 people. Is it reasonable, though, to allow these 4 verses to define who Yahweh is, and to negate the thousands of verses that has him as a singular pronoun, and has him, the Father, creating the universe by himself and alone? Of course not. This will be considered eisegesis, proof texting, a dishonest interpretation of the Scriptures. The simple and scholarly answer is this. In verses like Genesis 1:26, Yahweh the Father is speaking with amplification, also known as majestic plural. Amplification means that Yahweh the Father is emphasizing his majesty, power, and greatness as the one true El. It's common for a single person of power and majesty to speak like this when making a declaration or establishing something great. I'll leave a link in the comment section below on this topic of majestic plural and its way of speaking. Now, although Yahweh is one person, the Father, he was not alone in heaven. We see in Genesis 11 and Isaiah 6, heaven was filled with the heavenly host, angels and seraphims. Job 38, verse 4 through 7. Where were you when I laid the foundations of the earth? Verse 7. All the sons of Elohim shouted for joy. 1 Kings 22 verse 19. Yahweh sitting on his throne, singular, and all the host of heaven standing by, on his right hand and his left. And finally, the us is mentioned in Isaiah 6 with the vision of Yahweh on his throne. Just a side note, notice that there isn't 3 thrones or 3 people on this throne, just one person. And the us in this verse is in regards to who? The angels, the heavenly host. Isaiah 6, 1 through 8. I saw a master sitting on a throne, high and lifted up, and the train of his, singular, robe filled the temple. Above it stood seraphim, top rank angels. Verse 3. And one cried to another and said, Holy, holy, holy is Yahweh of hosts. Verse 8. Here's the key verse. Also I heard the voice of the Master saying, Whom shall I send, and who will go for us? Thank you, and shalom.